Hi, my name is Hannah, and I'm an illustrator and artist studying art again at age 35 in Osaka, Japan. So, today I want to talk about what I wish I had known or somebody had told me in my 20s. So, I would say pretty much all of my 20s, even though I was going to art school, I didn't necessarily view myself as an artist at all, and not even as an illustrator, even though that was my major. Instead, I would say that all of my 20s and into my 30s as well is pretty much full of self doubt. But my 20s was especially bad, always questioning what do I need to study? What is my job going to be? What is my true passion in life? And how can I get there? And feeling like I had no passion, and that sort of made me lost completely. And so I wish somebody had told me some of these things in my 20s, or I had come to some of these realizations a little bit sooner. So I'm going to talk about these things I wish I had known while I show you some of my art. So first, if you're in your 20s or your 30s, or older or younger, I think a lot of this advice rings true, especially if you're a creative person and perhaps a little bit more sensitive. But I think this can be true for really anybody, which is my first thing is don't compare yourself to others. Specifically, in my case, other artists. I would say in my early 20s and in my high school years, I compared myself to my friends and the type of art that they were doing, which was generally more animation or character driven or entertainment and concept design, like for video games or for movies and storyboards and those kinds of things. And frankly, not only am I not particularly good at it, I also don't really like it. And it's a sort of a chicken or an egg thing, right? Are you not good at it because you don't like it, or you don't like it because you're not good at it? I don't know. That's a story for another day. But I really tried to cram myself into this mold of, concept design for some reason. But I took like classes in perspective, and some were required, but like I took like classes on creatures and making like a clay model of its skeletal system, and I took private classes on how to draw the figure in different ways, and all of these things that were much more related to fields that I really wasn't ever going to really work in. So that was definitely a bit silly. And so I think instead of doing that, you need to try to tap into your own voice and what is it that you like looking at and what is it that you are attracted to making. So if I look at my art from when I'm in my early 20s or high school, it was very clear to me that I was much more interested in pattern and graphics and design than I really was in maybe realistic looking rendering or characters. But I didn't listen to that part of me at all. And that kind of brings me to a sub point here, which is not only not to compare yourself to others, but to maybe just like tap in to your own voice a little bit more. And that can be hard to do if you're just sitting around mulling things over all the time. What is my own voice? What do I like? Blah, blah, blah. So instead of getting too caught up in that, this brings me to my second point, which is just make things, even when you don't really have an idea. So I think, again, I always thought that I needed to have some grand like idea to make anything. It needed to have some sort of meaning or purpose or whatever. Or it had to be like a study. So I was either like studying the figure or studying portraits and making sketches, but I was never like making a finished composition or piece that I just liked. When I was a kid, I drew my dog, who was a Labrador retriever, all the time, and they were finished pieces of my doggy. But when I got older, it was like, oh, that's not good enough. But if you like, drawing animals, just draw animals and draw finished drawings of animals. That's sort of my advice to myself, is I did so many studies in drawing and trying to improve my drawing, but my composition didn't improve because I wasn't really ever making finished things. And basically, I think a big thing that changed this for me was actually really recently in my 30s, which is about 2 years ago, I gave myself a personal 100-day challenge of drawing a person, or at least a part of a person, like a hand or a face, for 100 days straight. And I do have one of my earlier videos about this. And in my challenge, it had to be like a finished composition, not just a sketch or a study. And I got so many ideas from this 100-day challenge. It like completely really changed my practice. So I still look back at some of these drawings or little paintings for ideas moving forward. But that's not the case for everybody. So that brings me to point 3, which is if you really, really can't think of anything, you might be really beating yourself up. Like, why can't I think of anything to make? I'm just copying things, or I just want to do studies, blah, blah, blah. I would suggest to go outside, take a little walk. I know that's a common, advice, but I really think that works. Or I love going to museums, and it doesn't necessarily have to be an art museum. Like if you have a natural history museum in your home town or nearby, go look at some skeletons or taxidermied animals. If it's cold, you don't want to go out, or there's nothing nearby. I love Pinterest. I've seen some artists saying don't use Pinterest because you get too swayed by other people's art. But for me, I love looking at other people's art, and not necessarily like contemporary. I love looking at archaeological, like old, early man art. I love following, I follow an Instagram account of like archaeological art, and they have amazing things from all over the world. So I just get excited about seeing those types of things, and those can be inspiring, and it doesn't mean that you're copying it. And I think this sort of hones sort of what you like and what your point of view is, and it can help drive you in a certain direction, because basically our style, I think, is an accumulation of all of the things that we love in our life and we love to look at. And so that does mean sometimes Pinterest and going to a museum and going to nature and doing whatever it is that you love to do. So in this regard, though, I still want you to remember, just make things. Some ideas aren't great, just get it out. I'm a big believer in getting it out. Some ideas need to just be born so you can catch the bigger fish. So it's okay, don't get too hung up on it. Which I think leads me to point number 4, which is you don't need to be passionate all of the time about everything that you're doing. So this was a huge hang up for me pretty much all of my 20s, because I was like, in high school, I did go to art high school, and I wasn't super in love with it. I really went because I wanted to go to a bigger school and meet more people. I did like making art, but it was like, oh, that's not going to be my job. That's not me. That's like not my personality. But once I went to college, I was like, oh, maybe this is my personality. So, but I didn't feel passionate. I would like avoid like doing homework for certain art classes. I would put things off, make myself super anxious. And it was because I put way too much pressure on myself on being perfect. And I was like, if I was passionate, I would just make things. Like it wouldn't matter. I would just do it because I love it. Obviously, I don't love it. And that wasn't true. I do think I love art. I was just really hard on myself. And so I felt like I wasn't interested, but I do love it. However, is it my one true life passion? I don't know. I really don't know. And I think that's okay. I think you can have multiple things that you enjoy in your life, and it doesn't have to be this one true passion that you need to follow to be a happy person. I felt like that was something in my millennial age range, that was really like put on to us, which was like, follow your passion, follow your dreams, then you will never work a day in your life, blah, blah, blah. And so it was kind of like, well, if I don't figure out what this is, then I'm going to be screwed for the rest of my life. And honestly, I've kind of come to the conclusion that I want to stay on a creative path, mostly because I do like making things, but also because ideally I'd like to work for myself one day, and this is a path that I can see where that's possible. If it's not possible in a creative path, I might consider another one someday. So to me, it's just sort of one way of getting to another goal. So I just want you to think about, it doesn't have to be like you love doing it all the time, that you're not going to procrastinate about it, because you will. And some days it's hard. I think especially, like I've heard for writers, it's especially difficult. For me as an artist, I can usually draw any day now, but it didn't used to be that way. So it doesn't mean that you're on the wrong path. It just might mean that you need to give yourself a little bit of a breather and not being so hard on yourself. And this one is just sort of, for me, number 5 right now, which is if you are interested someday in making this your creative, like, business, you want to work for yourself, like in my case, you don't need to have like some sort of solidified business plan, I think, to get started. It doesn't need to be a business yet. Just keep making things, and you can work it as a side job and be gentle on yourself. So this one's very specific to people who want to make a business of this, but it's sort of something I need to hear, because I have to tell myself it's okay that I'm not making money through my art yet. Like, it doesn't mean that it's not going to work. It just means I haven't figured it out yet. And I have made some money. I do get some commissions. I do have some things licensed, but it's definitely nowhere near like a successful business. But if you never get started on it, it'll never be a business. So just looking at it that way. It depends on your personality, though. I do think some people are more architects and they like to plan everything out and then build from the ground up. I think I am more of a putterer. I'm making a garden and planting lots of seeds and seeing what's going to grow. So take it or leave it with that one for sure. But I really want to end with my 6th point, which is sort of related to my first point, which is, not only to not compare yourself to others, but to try to believe in yourself sooner. So this is something I'm still working on, but I really didn't trust myself all of my 20s at all. Like zero trust there. And I still don't have a lot of trust now, but I put myself on paths in my 20s that were not suited to me. I went to a college right out of high school that I really didn't want to go to. I went to community college and then went to another university that I really didn't want to go to. And I just was sort of following things that other people wanted of me. And it just really slowed me down so much on getting to where I really wanted to go, which was really to just be an independent person. That's really all I've wanted. And I really wanted to work in my early 20s and, move out of my family's house and just have some, not so great part-time job and scrape by. And I think I would have learned the lesson that working like that is not super enjoyable and you're not going to make a lot of money and living by yourself is hard. And I would have come to this path of wanting to be my own business much, much sooner. So if I had just lived a little bit more and pushed a little bit harder back on the expectations I felt at least, that were put on me, then I don't think I would have stagnated, and I don't want to say wasted, but a lot of my 20s were pretty much me in still water, and it's something that I do wonder if I had just taken a little bit more of a leap on what I really wanted, whether I would be closer to my goal now. Of course, it doesn't help to regret these things, but I really encourage whoever you are, perhaps listening to this, if you really don't want to be going to college, don't be wasting a bunch of money in college. Work, do something else. And I think a lot more people are coming to that realization now, which I'm really happy to hear. It's a huge time and financial suck. And I do have a lot of loans, and I don't want to say I wouldn't have had the loans if I had worked, but things would have been different if I had started sooner on the dream that I really had, which was to be independent, move overseas, do my own thing. So that was number 6. So I just want to say, believe in yourself. And if anything I said really didn't resonate with you, leave it. Believe in your feeling and don't believe in what I have to say. If you thought number 5 or number 4 was a bunch of hooey, or, a more updated word than hooey, please ignore it. So, thank you for watching. So, if you're here, you've watched to the end of the video, and all I can say is thank you for listening, and I hope that some of this was helpful. I really just think this is also helpful for me, because I've been feeling really kind of lost in whether this is the right path, but I think it's important for us to check in with ourselves and to remind ourselves to follow our own way and to not copy others, and to listen to our own voice to the best of our ability. And I hope that some of this was helpful. That's all I can say. And if you enjoyed it, please give me a like, or even more, I would love to hear from you directly. And so please comment below. Thanks again for watching. Bye.